Hi everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We're taking a look, of course, here at Bitcoin once more. Want to see kind of what's the deal here. Is it going to keep going down, or are we going to get that little bounce to the upside to continue the ascending bullish triangle there and kind of go from there, right? So we're going to see if that pennant pattern is going to play out once more, or if it's going to just continue to decrease in price. It's still overextended, so I'm leaning a little bit more towards a further retracement, but on the same accord, we're going to look at kind of the smaller time frames to identify if there's any potential shift or just confirmation to whichever direction. All right, so we want to kind of look at that. And again, good TA also, includes just consistent reevaluation, right? We don't just set an alert and jump right in. We want to make sure it's looking forgiving in whichever direction you're planning to take, and essentially go from there. So if you are new to the channel, just know I love teaching people to trade. I've been trading for over 17 years, and if you want to become a better trader, you can register at cryptocash.tech, link down below. We do also have a handful of trades that we take here. We took some nice profit from BNB at 59% here recently, and what I think Gala as well on the same day. That was just a couple of days ago. You can see here right about 33% for our second target. Both those trades have been closed because, of course, we have a trailing take profit, and it adjusts, basically our trailing stop loss adjusts as we continue to take those profits. So really awesome stuff there. Keep up the great work too. We got just a fantastic, amazing community. Everyone's doing really, really well. So keep up the good work, guys and gals. I think it's just amazing how well you're adapting. It takes time though. Patience is key. It's important to try not to make thousands of dollars overnight. While that can still happen, it's important to kind of pace yourself too. All right, so we're all using the best exchange in the country. Once again, Bitget. I don't even know. Bitget.com, is that the one? The link down below if you want to register and essentially benefit from that. A phenomenal exchange, $10,000 prize pool monthly. Be sure to check that out. ExpressVPN as well. Keep this in mind. This is a fantastic, phenomenal VPN. I've been using them for years, and they recently partnered with me here to give you 3 extra months free. So thanks again to Express and Bitget for just amazing opportunities for my community. Thank you. So here's the thing. With the standard market, we can see NASDAQ is down by a healthy percentage, almost 2%. And same thing with S&P. We're looking at about 1.25 as a rough estimate. So what's going on here? Those are both down. Dollar index is pretty much drawing dead. However, Bitcoin is also breaking even. Is this a good sign? This is a bad sign. What does that mean? Well, to me, I think it's positive because it shows that with the traditional markets coming down, Bitcoin is holding its price point fairly well. That's a good sign. It tells us we have a lot of volume at this price point, a lot of sustainability, and with all the new money coming into the market in this range here, I think the potential of a strong pullback is becoming lower. Not to say it won't still happen. It could still absolutely drop like a rock, but I think the probability is fairly low. Yes, we may fill that gap between 19,900 and 21,000. But even if we don't go that far down, I do think that we're nearing the immediate bottom. Okay, I don't foresee 15,000, 16,000 as an option in the immediate future, even though that could be in the distant future. Right now, we're looking fairly decent. Okay, so a pullback would make sense, further pullback, but a significant pullback doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, again, this is still too early to tell because traditional markets, that it's not always a gauge, but it does help us understand that we're doing a lot better than regular markets today, and that's a fantastic thing. Okay, so that being said, that's kind of where we're at there in that regard. We can see the RSI starting to taper off, which is good. We want that to happen. We want the RSI to continue to lower as the price stays where it's at. That would warrant the next leg up, or essentially allow for us to have another pennant type of pattern. Okay, so again, I was talking about this yesterday, just how the likelihood of consistent pennant patterns or candlestick patterns, however, they tend to lose their potency as they continue to happen. So if we have another breakout to the upside here, it would surprise me, but if it were to happen, an immediate retracement after that would make much more sense. Okay, so just be mindful that we could see some pullback there. We are also starting to see this taper off here as well. The MACD is starting to lose momentum. So really just telling us that continuation of the upside is, again, less likely as time progresses. Once more, just to clarify, we got the ascending type of trend here, of course, the 20-day SMA working concurrent with that ascending trend. We can see that this ascending trend has retested a couple of times. We can see this on smaller time frames a little bit easier, but generally speaking, we are at this point where today we're testing it, and we may break above, we may break below. It's just one of those things where we got to wait until it actually happens to actually understand if it's going to continue, right? So until a trend line breaks, you have to assume it's going to hold, okay? That's generally where we're at. So for the most part, the daily looks fairly decent, albeit overextended. We're still maintaining that trend line. We're still looking okay for the moment, but I don't love, going long into situations like this. It's really not a great scenario personally for me. I like to wait for other for signs of confirmation. So let's talk about that. This is a good confirmation here that we could potentially identify here as a positive. We can see, first of all, in its history, Bitcoin, when it was consolidating, had this nice little pennant type pattern before the breakout. The price action continued sideways, retested this trend line, continued upwards, but just before it did, it bounced off 50 on the RSI, okay? So we're seeing similar behavior here as well, where 50 on the RSI is potentially working as that support level, tells us that the relative strength is still bullish, and that we are potentially more likely to increase from here than decrease. So the 4 hour is actually forgiving here in that sense, telling us we have a shift in momentum. Bear in mind, we are still kind of plateauing here for the oscillator on the MACD, so we don't have a shift in significant momentum to the upside. So that really doesn't tell us that we're going to converge and the price is just going to come up because of that, right? So in essence, there is some positive, shrouded with some negative here, and I would say that it kind of almost washes itself out. Break even, for lack of a better term. So to me, there's not much confirmation here. It's going to go either way. We probably want to wait for that trend line to continue or discontinue. Furthermore, here as well in the hourly, I like to look at a few things. Of course, TD sequential is not going to give us too much indication, but we can see we came down to a 6, got a little reset, and then we're trying to come back down. So, in essence, you can see here that we are having lower lows and lower highs, okay? So that's usually an indication it's going to continue until it doesn't, right? Because we saw this previously here, higher highs and higher lows. Generally speaking, it continues, but the overall trend here is that we are making lower highs and we are technically making lower lows, even though it's kind of a stretch. You could even argue that we are having somewhat of a triangle pattern here forming, and that could effectively break out in either direction. Again, it depends on how that trend line wants to hold. Let's take a quick look at Ichimoku. This is probably going to give us some understanding here that we are below the cloud, right? And I've mentioned this previously. When you break below the cloud, generally speaking, you want to wait for confirmation, whereas the lagging span is intersecting with the price action here soon, so we could be losing that bearish momentum, and then the conversion line is below the baseline. So we've kind of got 2 out of 3 indications here telling us that a short position may still be viable to hold and continue to maintain, but it's not telling us definitively we want to take a short position. Okay, so again, at this point, with us getting closer to that potential reversal point, either to the upside or downside, it's probably best to wait on the sidelines. I know it's not what you want to hear, of course, because unfortunately trading doesn't always have to be one direction or the other. It can go sideways for quite some time, and those are the points in which you wait for confirmation in either direction and then join in. All right, you don't just try to get ahead of the curve every single time and buy the dip because it's a dip. That makes you kind of a dip, right? So try not to do that. Try to exercise patience and wait for confirmation here. Even though we do have some confirmation that a short position may still be viable, still not 100%. But I do like the lower lows and lower highs in regard to the price action potentially continuing lower. I think that's very realistic here at this point. And ultimately, I do feel, just generally speaking, we have slightly more inclination to decrease in price first before we increase from here. I don't think we're going to see, a double type of pennant pattern. It's just not. It's not super common. Okay. Again, if it were to happen, then I'd be shorting pretty heavily if it were to come up closer to about the 25,000 range, because this is a strong resistance area up here. Okay. So we'll bridge that gap when we get there. Between now and then, I would anticipate a slightly lower price point. Again, I'm sticking with that narrative here just because it doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense for the price to be able to maintain where it's at. But you got to keep in mind too, it is doing very well contrary to traditional markets. Okay, and that's a fairly good sign. So to me, I think we're looking pretty decent here for Bitcoin, and ultimately, I would just wait for a little bit more confirmation before you jump in. That's just me personally. It's exactly the reason why I haven't shorted or taken any longs for Bitcoin, kind of waiting for it to make up its mind. There are some good altcoins I have my eyes on as well, so we'll go ahead and review that here shortly. And if all goes well, we'll go ahead and get a few extra trades in the pipe. All right, well, I hope you had a good learning experience here today. Thank you so much for joining me here. We'll look forward to working with you. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks again.